Hey, welcome to Sixth Period Economics. It's good to see you today. I hope you're having a good week. The Friday is almost over and you're off to the weekend. I'll tell you to get good sleep and to be safe. Hopefully you will be safe. I doubt you'll get good sleep, but I can at least encourage you anyway. I hope things are going well for you. We look forward to seeing you next week, and I'm sure we'll come back tired with lots of stories of the grandkids. So we're looking forward to seeing you again. Want to remind you it's Friday and you matter, and I care about you, so please remember just to have a good and safe weekend, okay? Well, today we're wrapping up some conversations regarding monopolistic competition, and so I want to talk about that. So what percentage of the market share should a business be allowed to have before the federal government gets involved to increase competition? What percent of a business, the total sales of a business, should a company be allowed to have? Let's say you own a landscaping company in Hilliard. Of all the business that's done in Hilliard, what percentage of all the landscaping business that's done in Hilliard should you be allowed to have before you're considered a monopoly? What percentage of all the landscaping business in all of Nassau County should you be allowed to have? If you had a landscaping business, how much of the total business should you be allowed to have in Florida before the government steps in? Ultimately, what we're trying to get at is what percentage of the total business done in a particular area should you be allowed to have before the government steps in and says, no, that's a monopoly and we're going to get involved. Have a conversation with your partner there, and then have a conversation as a class, and we'll see what you come up with. Okay, so the government, as you already know, we don't live in a pure free enterprise economic system. We live in a mixed economy where the government is going to get involved with business, especially if businesses are engaged in practices that are deemed by the government and their regulatory agencies to be illegal. In government, we're going to talk more about the bureaucracies that run that kind of thing. But here in economics, we're just talking about the economics of it and how that works. So the Federal Trade Commission primarily is going to be a bureaucracy that gets involved in whether or not your business is engaged in legal business practices. So as you already talked about as a class, there is a percentage of a share of the total business that you can have before the federal government steps in and says you have too much business. It's what's preventing Verizon from buying T-Mobile or any of the other cell phone companies. They're not going to be allowed to buy another cell phone company because they already have such a large market share. And so ultimately, that whole question that you just considered was designed to get you personally to consider what role the government would have in your business if you have one. Now, there are other things that the government does that can involve with business, and that's when a company engages in predatory pricing. And what that means is that they're setting the market price below their costs for the short term to drive out their competitors. So predatory pricing is illegal. You cannot do that. I know it sounds like a great idea, but if Verizon was to undercut their costs by 25% to drive out T-Mobile, they would be rightly accused of predatory pricing for the sake of gaining a monopoly in the area of cell phones. So that is what the government does. You also see that there are antitrust laws, and that says government policies watch and ensure firms don't unfairly force out its competitors. So there are other things that a company can do to drive out business competition, and those are all regulated by antitrust laws. Now, if a company merges with another company, they have to consider whether or not that merger is legal, and if they have similar parts of the business is similar to other parts of another business, then they would have to sell off a part of the business they're trying to acquire. But that's not going to be something that you need to focus on. But deregulation is something that rarely happens, but the government decides that it no longer wants to play a role in a particular market. I would struggle to to figure out an area in business where the government has engaged in deregulation, but that is a thing. All right, so let me ask you a question about Monopoly, the game. What is the point of Monopoly? What is the point of the game Monopoly? How does one go about winning? And is this game an economics neutral game, or does it have an economics agenda? Talk about that together, and we'll see what you have to say. I hope your conversation was enlightening. So what is the point of Monopoly? The point of Monopoly is not a positive economics game. The point of Monopoly is for you to have a monopoly, not to engage in monopolistic competition. The goal to win the game is to wipe everyone else out of the game. This game is not economics neutral. It drifts towards socialism, if not communism, where one entity has ownership and possession of everything. So it is not a free market game. It is a market that focuses on sole ownership of one entity over everyone and everything. So the reason we're asking that question is just to try to figure out what the heart of a business is, what the heart of economics is. Are people engaged in fair business practices? What is a fair business practice? And when the government uses the idea of fair, what does that mean? So in Florida economics, we have the opinion that the government should be in as little as possible to allow for the greatest opportunity for free economics as possible. So whether or not you personally agree with that is another question, but free economics in Florida is all about trying to make sure that businesses have as much opportunity to engage in what they would consider to be fair business practice, not what the government would consider to be fair business practice. To that end, you're going to watch a couple videos to end the day. One is on antitrust law, and the other is a video about Google and an antitrust lawsuit that was filed against them as it relates to Microsoft and their browsers. So take a look at each of these and have a conversation with your substitute and with each other about what the point of each of these videos would be. And after that, then we're done for the day. Again, I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy your time with friends and loved ones, and I look forward to seeing you again here in a few days.